Shalom, shalom. Call Haloyim Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Machak Wadash and Shani Kabad and Gadwala Requabs Quanyam Nawa Wa Shalayakim Nawa, and that is double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone. And Shalom Wabarakim Labakayim Shalayasharala, and that is peace and blessings to the elect of Israel, and a peace and blessings to the confusion of faces, and may a double portion of the Holy Spirit be put upon the brothers that are out there on the highways and byways, offering their bodies as a living sacrifice out there on the front lines. So I'm going to start off by reading Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. It says, "The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun." Now, the reason why I wanted to start off reading that is because check out this article. So it was written today, May 15, 2019. It says, "A criminal affair. United States imposes war on the Venezuelan people." Because basically what we're going to do after we read through maybe a few paragraphs in this article, then we're going to jump to Daniel, the 8th chapter, and we're not going to read the vision, but we're basically going to jump to around verse 20 and maybe read on down to verse 25. Because back then, that's talking about the Grecian Empire. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but it basically says, through his policy, he what? He shall cause craft to prosper, and he shall magnify himself. All right, and that's the same thing that's happening right now, because that's going into the Grecian Empire, which was ruled by none other than who? Alexander the Great. Then you had his 4 generals, and then so on and so forth. All right. And then, of course, you can't forget that wicked root, which is Antiochus. But we'll get into all that. I'm getting ahead of myself. But that which has been is what shall be done. So the same thing that happened back then during the Grecian Empire is happening right now. And this is why Venezuela is going through the economic collapse that it's experiencing today. So here we go. It says, to replace Venezuela's government with one to its liking, the United States uses special war-making tools. The plan is to make Venezuelans suffer enough so that, desperate, they will accept whatever government is presented. Troops and weapons aren't required. That approach, why isn't it? Because of his policies. He causes craft to prosper. That's why it says troops and weapons aren't required. That approach worked in Chile in 1973, but so far in Cuba, it hasn't after almost 60 years. The process has advanced. Citing a report from Venezuela's National Survey on Living Conditions, analysts Mark Weisbrot and Jeffrey Sachs noted recently that 40,000 more Venezuelans died in 2018 than in 2017. The death rate jumped by 31%. The purpose here is to establish that the U.S. government actually intends to make Venezuelans suffer. U.S. deeds and officials' words are revealing. Those responsible need to be called to account. Now check it out. It says, interviewed on October 19, 2018, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo conceded that U.S. sanctions against Venezuela, quote, sometimes have an adverse impact on the people of Venezuela. But on March 11, 2019, he was celebrating, quote, the circle is tightening. The humanitarian crisis is increasing by the hour. I talked with our senior person on the ground there in Venezuela last night. You can see the increasing pain and suffering that the Venezuelan people are suffering from. Answering a reporter's question in early 2018 about U.S. policies on Venezuela, a U.S. embassy official in Mexico City commented that, quote, the economic sanctions we've imposed on the Venezuelan government have caused it to stop making payments as much on its sovereign debt as on PDVSA, its oil company. We are seeing a total economic collapse. Therefore, our policy is working. You see? Now, this is it says he was policy in Venezuela, a U.S. embassy official in Mexico City. Okay? Now, that's who said that. So basically, what this article is getting into, and we may read a little bit further, because it's going to really get into it. But it's talking about all the sanctions, and it gives the history of when it started back in 2014 is really when it started to really make a huge impact in Venezuela. And then how 5 years later, those sanctions are basically leading up to the economic collapse and the crisis of what we're seeing down in Venezuela. But from the comments of these different, I'm just going to say political advisors, for lack of a better word or phrase, from their comments, you can see that basically they were striving through their policies to actually make the people of Venezuela suffer through the sanctions that they were imposing. And remember, like I mentioned, that's exactly why we started off reading Ecclesiastes, the first chapter. There's no new thing under the sun. Now, we're going to read this too. It says, interviewed later that year, former U.S. ambassador to Venezuela, William Brownfield, declared that, quote, if we are going to sanction PDVSA, it will have an impact on the entire people, talking about of Venezuela. At this moment, perhaps the best resolution would be to accelerate the collapse, even if it produces a period of suffering of months or perhaps years. You see? So through their sanctions, they knew that there was going to be some kind of a collapse in Venezuela. They already knew this. They predicted it, they planned it, and they said, what? We might as well just sanction them and get it out the way, even if it lasts a few months or even years. Now, we'll read just his first paragraph so you can really see, like I mentioned before, about the sanctions, how they started in 2014 and, 5 years later, how the country is impacted by it. So it says, beginning in 2014, the U.S. government instituted economic sanctions. Venezuela was vulnerable. Oil prices had plummeted and inflation had skyrocketed. Contributing to inflation were reduced oil prices, hoarding of merchandise by commercial interests, and currency manipulation, which, according to Venezuelan economist Pascualina Corsillo, is one of the main weapons of war that imperialism has to use. You see, that's talking about currency manipulation. And then when you continue to read on, it gives more about the sanctions. Economic sanctions became a weapon of war. It says right here, countries now aligned against Venezuela once supplied 46% of the medicines needed there, with the United States providing 34%. Those countries were the source of 40, and they give facts and they give history of what happened. But that's the point right there. If you wanted to read that article more, like I said, it's called A Criminal Affair. United States imposes war on the Venezuelan people. Now, remember, there's no new thing under the sun. So let's jump over here now to Daniel, the 8th chapter. And when you start off reading, of course, you get that vision, all right, in the first verse. Now, just to get right to the point, and so the video isn't too long, then we're going to jump right to verse 20. Yeah, and we'll read through verse 25. That's what I have highlighted through the Spirit. And we'll break down that vision just to show you that there really is no new thing under the sun. So Daniel 8 verse 20, it says, the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. That's straightforward. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. And we know that to be who? No other than Alexander the Greek. All right. Alexander the Great, Alexander the Greek. All right. So verse 22, right? And his eyes are the first king. Verse 22, it says, now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And that's talking about Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lysimachus, and Cassander. Verse 23, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance. It says a king of fierce countenance. Who's that? That's talking about Antiochus. A king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Once again, that's Antiochus. Now verse 24, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. What does it mean, not by his own power? Because Antiochus ruled and he basically had mercenary nations under him. Already had mercenary nations. So it goes on to say, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Who is the holy people? That's talking about the nation of Israel, the Israelites. Now, verse 25 is a point. It says what? And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. And he shall stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Now the point is what? It says, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. Because this is exactly what Antiochus did at that time. Now when we go into Hebrew, we see what? First we're going to look up the word policy. We'll look that up. We have the Hebrew word shakal. All right, shakal. All right. That's not really policy. Hold on. Oh, yeah, it is. And through his policy. All right, shakal, policy. Prudence, insight, understanding, prudence, his good sense, cunning, craft. All right. Wisdom, prudence, sense, or discretion. And that's exactly what it is. You have council, a Senate or Congress that comes together, and through their own kind of prudence or knowledge or sense, then basically what? They make some kind of a policy. They make a law. They put some kind of amendment in place. So now we're going to look up this second word, and through his policy shall call. Also he shall cause craft. Here we go. This is the second word, craft. You have the Hebrew word marma, and it says what? Deceit or treachery. Deceit, treachery, false, guile, craft, subtlety. All right. Guile, treachery, false. Yep. And that's the point right there. And through his policy also he shall cause craft or deceit to prosper in his hand. So this happened back then during the Grecian Empire, when who? Antiochus, that wicked root, took over. And it's the same exact thing that's happening right now. And you see it within the same exact nation, the Edomites. We just read it in that article. Basically, America knew exactly what they were doing when they started back in 2014, 5 years ago, imposing sanctions on Venezuela. They knew exactly that that would cause an economic collapse. And they basically said, look, let's get it out the way. Whether it's a few months or even years, it has to happen. And that's how they're causing basically craft to prosper. Remember, the article said that sanctions became the new weapons of war. They didn't need to use guns or their military might, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. They didn't need to use anything like that. They're using their policy, laws, legislation, their own prudence, their own wisdom, in which Edom was given the blessing of that left hand wisdom. All right, that left hand wisdom. He's offering up sacrifices to Satan and other gods in order for some kind of blessing here on earth. You know, the scriptures say that the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. What do you really think he's doing behind closed doors? He's offering up, wicked sacrifices in order to strive to keep his blessing going. You see, but the scriptures say that he knoweth. We'll probably end off right here. Revelation 12, verse 12. It says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And the word devil basically represents someone with a forked tongue or a deceiver. And that's exactly why this scripture is referring to the self-proclaimed white people today. They are biblically known as the Edomites. And they're being described here as a devil because they're a deceiver. And did we not just read that right here? About their deception, their craft, about through their policies, they're causing craft to prosper. All right. So I just wanted to bring that out because, hey, basically what's happening in Venezuela, whatever, it's going to basically come to a city near you. What's happening in Venezuela is going to basically happen in America very, very, very soon. And like we've been saying, starting with our elders and apostles of Great Millstone on down, that microchip, which is the mark of the beast, is going to be made mandatory. And what does it say? It says he causeth. Matter of fact, we'll end off with that actually. We'll just go do this. Revelation 13, verse 16. It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. I'm not going to finish reading the rest. The microchip is the mark of the beast. You should know that in 2019. Now, let's just see something real quick. I've never looked it up. Let's see what it says. For the word causeth in the Greek, I guess it must be pronounced poio. It says to make. To make with the names of things made, to produce, construct, form, or fashion. Let's see if we can get something. Check it out. Look at this. At the very top, it says to constitute or appoint one anything, to appoint or ordain one that, to declare one anything, or to put forth. Basically, so what is he doing? Once again, remember, something has to happen in order for that microchip to be made mandatory, and it's going to cause something to happen. How else are people all around the world, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, going to have to receive that mark in their right hand or on their forehead? Well, it's going to be through some kind of craft. Remember, it's going to be through some kind of craft. Remember, through his policy, he shall cause craft to prosper. You know, the scriptures say that we're not ignorant to Satan's devices, and this is exactly why. Through the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, we understand that that which has been is that which shall be, and there is no new thing under the sun. So, I'm just rambling on right now, but I do pray that was edifying, and I want to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Dash, and double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.